Hey everybody, it's Greg with Campcraft Outdoors and Campcraft Gospel Ministries. We're here with one of our good buddies, Mike Denney. And Mike, why don't you just go ahead and tell everybody about yourself?
Let's see, when did I first come to Campcraft? I know I've known Jason for about 6 to 7 years. Now met him, I guess at Smoky Mountain Knife Works for the first time. And then the Pathfinder Gathering, and then he told me he was opening back up his school, and so I came here and trained, and I've just been having a ball ever since. Learned a lot more about Jesus than I thought I would coming here. I didn't really know what the whole gig was. I really didn't know who Jason was when I first met him.
Yeah, me the same way.
Yeah. So
I think one of the common threads we had was both that Pathfinder Gathering. I think I went in 2016, and maybe you went
probably in 17.
The following year, yeah. Were you always into bushcraft, or was this like it hit me for? I joke all the time. It was a midlife crisis for me. Obviously, you're a lot younger than me. You haven't hit that midlife crisis yet. So, what was it? Were you always into bushcraft, or what brought it into your life?
Not really. I grew up like fishing a lot with my dad. He was really into fly fishing, so we were always outside in the woods, and I knew how to bait fires and that. I remember it was a really big deal to be able to make a one-match fire when I was a kid. But I got into bushcraft. People have asked me this before, and it was really like the movie The Hunted. You remember that one with Benicio del Toro and Tommy Lee Jones?
Yeah.
So, like,
there was an Ice-T, I think, was maybe also in it, or not Ice-T?
No.
One of them?
Well, it was like the Tom Brown thing, the trapper knife and all that.
For sure.
And so, they make the knife look really cool in the movie. I don't know if it'll do all that stuff or not, but I just started researching that knife. And then I got on these forums, and these guys were talking, oh, that knife sucks, this is a better knife. And so I went down the rabbit hole on that, and eventually I discovered Morris Kahinsky and started watching those kind of videos. And then I got really into Cody Lundeen, and just, I don't know, kind of fleshed it out from there. And then of course watching the Pathfinder videos, Dave Canterbury and all that, and I was sipping the Kool-Aid back then. I couldn't wait for the new video the next week, and just started practicing those skills. And I went to a basic class in Georgia and did pretty well in that one.
Pathfinder?
Yeah, through Pathfinder. That was it. That's the one and only class I ever took with them. And then I remember what really impressed me at that class was we had met previously at Smoky Mountain Knife Works, and
That's just, you and Jason?
Yeah, Jason, and Mom was with me as well. But I remember, as soon as I got out of my car and was walking up, he was just like, "Hey, Mike, good to see you," and remembered who I was, and all that. So that was really cool. And then seeing him again at the Pathfinder Gathering, and him telling me what he was doing in the future, and I was just like, "Man, I'm gonna roll with this dude."
Yeah. Now, were you as an upbringing with you said your dad out in the woods and stuff? What was your religious upbringing like? I grew up in the west side of Buffalo, which was an old Italian neighborhood. Off the boat, Italian and Polish immigrants, basically. That was my mom's family. Catholic church, real strong. Our church was 2 doors down from the house. The priests, the neighborhood would, host the priests for dinner and things. So Catholic church was important, but it was kind of like going through the motions. And of course, I was little then. Would you say religion was a part of your life growing up? Did you guys regularly attend church? Or was
when I was younger, we went to church a lot. I don't think I understood really the full scope of it. Then, my brother used to joke that when we were that age, it was like Boogeyman Jesus, because we weren't allowed to watch Smurfs or Transformers, the devil was just everywhere.
Okay. So my parents obviously didn't, they pretty much didn't care what we watched on TV, but then that was before cable TV too, so things were kind of tame, but so that's interesting. Different.
Well, it was really it was at that time we lived in Brasstown, North Carolina, and it was a stoplight, a post office, and then the church and the school was the same place.
Yeah. So it was more of a social gathering type of thing than it was maybe.
I don't remember a lot about it. I remember when we moved to Cleveland, going to a bunch of different churches, and then after my parents got divorced, Mom would still take us to church and that. But it was a long time before I really understood what actually was going. Honestly, you could probably say within the last probably 5 to 8 years, like I've really like started taking faith more seriously.
Yeah.
As far as that goes.
What do you think drew you back to it? Or would you say you ever separated yourself from it and then you were brought back?
I tried. Yeah, a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Like thought I was like a pantheist for a while. Tried to convince myself I was an atheist for a while. Like all that and that. But it was always like there was always something that would bring me back to that. And even in those portions of my life where I was trying to convince myself of something else, I would always have like those thoughts, like more back to the Bible and Jesus and stuff, like when I was thinking about things. But,
yeah. I've always thought every time I've kind of questioned something, it's like he's over your shoulder going, that's not it, and you know better. Like more in a friendly advice way than a scolding way.
Yeah.
But different kind of, again, when I hit my teenage years, I won't say I rebelled, but religion just was something that was unimportant. I was, it wasn't, we kind of distanced ourselves from the Catholic Church when I was maybe my first communion, I don't remember when it was, maybe 3rd or 4th grade. And then it was like no longer a requirement to go.
Yeah.
So, of course, you give me the option, do I want to sleep in on a Sunday or go to church? As a kid, the choice was made. And I don't think I rebelled, but it just became something that was not important.
Yeah.
But it was always, it would creep up at weird times, and then, I quickly took a job in law enforcement where you see the worst in people. And I would say, honestly, the first few years as a cop, I became as close to maybe an atheist as possible, like going, all this bad stuff happens, then why isn't God stepping in and just killing these people, or, pressure washing the earth? I don't know, what would you say brought you back around then to where you started to explore your faith a little more?
Now, nothing else was working, I reckon. Would be, I guess. And I don't know, I got involved with a group for a time. I guess I was probably my late 20s at that point, and I thought that they knew what they were talking about, and that didn't turn out to be.
Yeah, so was that like a religious group or?
Yeah. It was a guy. There was a guy around my area, and I was always like a big questioner, like about things. Like it did bothered me that there were questions that preachers and stuff couldn't answer.
Right.
Or the mysteries and that. So I met this group, and there was one guy that sounded like he had it all, had it figured out. So I was like, man, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And started kind of trying to follow in that, and it just it was a bunch of crap. Like not even really worth talking about. But I don't know. I was thinking about it a little bit more after you asked me initially. Like when I was younger, we would go to church, and it was like my grandparents would Jesus this, Jesus that, whatever. But nobody really ever sat me down and talked to me about it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Really?
Yeah. Would you say how many people do we know? And I hate to say you look back with hindsight, how many people? I know dozens of people in my life. I thought they were religious because they said grace at every meal, and they went to Sunday, to church on Sundays. Or then when I moved to Florida, the big thing was also Wednesday night. If you went to Wednesday night, Sunday day, and Sunday evening, you were like gold star in the church.
Yeah.
But then those people were struggling with the same things.
Oh yeah.
Everybody else struggles with.
I've gotten a lot better at that now, spotting the religious people versus the real believers or spiritual people, or however you want to say that.
Would you say I've spoke before about my testimony, and for people that aren't aware, I got saved out here at the property during an urban survival class, or after an urban survival class. And I think that was the defining moment for me. I had always questioned, I knew Jesus and I knew something was working, but finally there was this defining moment. It was literally the light switch was on and the blinds were taken off and the sunlight finally came in. Can you put, and that's unique to me. Do you think it was a slow progression for you back to your faith, or do you think was there a defining moment that you went, this is the way I gotta go?
Both, I guess. Kind of, it was that slow progression, and then it hit you know, I guess like the more that I've came up here, like I kind of, it was kind of funny. Somebody was asking me about coming up here, and you know, I told them, I was like, well, there was a class, and you know, it got canceled, and we're just gonna hang out now or whatever. But like, this is kind of like where I go to get my recharge.
Yeah.
You know, like I really enjoy being around all you guys, and it's like I don't really have a group like that at home, so like I can come up here and be around like, you know.
Yeah. I'm going to put you on the spot because there's a story you shared with us, and you shared with me when you found out. I think when we first met, we found out that we had been to gatherings just a year apart, and we spoke about the Sunday sermons.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, totally. That was a really cool moment.
Tell the viewers about your. They know my story is that you're in this pavilion with probably 200-300 people.
Oh yeah.
And Jason started speaking, and all of a sudden I got the feeling that it was almost like tunnel vision. It was like me and him in this pavilion. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and tell your story, because it's an interesting story.
Well,
and I think a lot of people would get something.
It was my first year of the gathering, and so like we were camping on the party side. So like I got around some other guys that evening, and we had there was moonshine and God knows what else. But I got very, very drunk. Stuff that I'm not overly proud of there, but. That was how that happened, but it was Saturday night, and then we got up Sunday morning, and like I remembered that he said he was going to do the service on Sunday, and I really wanted to make it, hungover as I was. But I went up there and was sitting, and it was Jason did his thing. He walks up, opens the Bible, he's like, "What are we talking about today?" And just like starts going on. I don't think I can tell you anything else that he said during the course of that sermon, but I was sitting there just feeling like crap. And I'm like, well, it shows how much I knew at the time. I'm like, man, I wonder if it's a sin to get drunk, which it clearly says. But yeah, he just stopped, like, right in the middle of his sermon, and just kind of looked around. He was like, yes, it is a sin to get drunk. He's like, I don't know why I said that, but somebody needed to hear it. And then went right back to it, and that really blew my mind. I was just like, okay, like something's going on here for sure. So
yeah, that I always thought that was a good story that people need to hear. Is like, Jesus is always there, and he's always listening and communicating around us, and it's us that either tune him out with distractions, or the devil's giving us distractions. The devil's always there, tapping on your shoulder, because he knows if he gets in just a second, that's time away from paying attention to God's word. Mm-hmm. So you heard that. What did you think?
No, it really blew my mind. Like I couldn't, I never really had anything like that happen to me before.
Yeah.
Like, where somebody just.
Yeah, and then we met probably shortly after that, and we actually completed our advanced class and our instructor certificates together.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that experience, that final, I guess your final night. How did you feel that night going in by yourself? I
was very confident going in. My experience wasn't as cool as yours. Like I know you're.
But he comes to us in each different ways. It's I don't know how to describe it. Like what I think my experience, it's unique to me, because I'm different than you and everybody else. One thing you talked about earlier in your conversation was knives, and one of the things that impressed me was your resilience and your, ambition to succeed. Is you had that fancy, crazy knife. For anybody, what was it,
WC Master Woodsman.
Yeah, it was like a multi-tool knife, crazy device that was Mike's pride and joy. And I think maybe on day one you snapped it.
Yeah, I think that was like day 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And I was beating it through a piece of cedar that I had no business
beating
it through with an axe, 10 feet away.
Instead of giving up, Mike doubled down, and he actually made his own handle and continued on to finish the class. And I'll tell you that at some point the weather turned very sour for us.
Oh yeah, dude, we got our butts kicked all week.
And, we had a hailstorm. We had severe weather warnings. Of course, we didn't know any of that was happening until it was actually happening while Jason was up in the house. But we pulled through it together, and I think for sure, I know that God was there in the camp with us throughout that experience, and I did have a unique experience. that I've shared a little bit, and I'll share more as these videos go on.
Yeah.
There came a time I don't recall. I know I was here then, but I don't recall when it was. Sometime after that, you got saved here on the property as well. Do you want to talk at all about that?
Yeah, for sure. Trying to kind of gather my thoughts on that one a little bit. Well, I mean, like I've, like I say, I've known Jace for about 6-7 years now. Been coming up here a lot. Like I've taken my licks, and like my education has been far more than bushcraft skills here too. But I mean, it hasn't always been easy. And I mean, me and Jason know each other pretty well. He doesn't mind telling me when I'm when I'm jacked up.
There's no filter here.
So yeah, so I and there were just every time, like I'd learn something new or I'd get corrected in some way, then have to go home and think about that one and that. There was one time he told me not to come back, like until I got whatever was going on with me, like sorted out. So
I remember that phone call from you.
Yeah,
you called and you were like, he kicked me off the property.
It's
like, what? So
it's been a slow burn.
It's all out of love.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Well, I wouldn't. It probably wouldn't work any other way for me.
And I think this group, we joke that the network or the group, it's a small core of us that have been through here. We hold each other almost sometimes brutally accountable for our actions. And I've had, I've been on that receiving end of Jason's wrath, for lack of a better term. He threatened to kick me really hard one day. But we keep each other honest out of love, and sometimes that love is it can be harsh. It's not mean spirited.
Yeah.
But it can be a little cutting and a little harsh, and I think that's what keeps us together and honest. So we kind of got on a sidetrack.
Side quest.
What would you say? Talking about you getting saved.
Yeah, right.
What do you think that defining moment was where you decided this is the time to, literally jump in and get wet?
Mm-hmm. Well, it was something I've been looking forward to, and I'd actually asked Jason in a previous, I think it was urban survival class, and I wasn't living right at the time, and he was just like, no, I'm not doing that right now. He was like, you don't even know what you're talking about, like you're all, I was doing stuff I wasn't supposed to be doing. But, so as I progressed through that, and started praying more, and I had some other situations in my life that God was moving in that was, I just knew it was Him, because it couldn't be anything else. And
like what?
About legal troubles, stuff like that, where I'm not in prison, so I'm still a free man, and I give all the glory on that one to God, because He's definitely didn't have to. It was my own mistakes, but you want me to elaborate more?
No. I just think it's important. Like we've all had different experiences that have led us to God, and I'm sure there's people out there that are questioning and wondering. I'm feeling something, but is it for real, or is it really? I don't know. Or I'll tell you, and I don't know that you know this. I've shared this with Jason. In 2007, I was being sent to Iraq, and it was an active. Obviously, 2007, the war on the global war on terror and the coalition of the willing, and we'll talk about that one day. I was nervous, and rightfully so. I was not saved yet. And I went to the church that I had been going to for probably 5 or 6 years, leading up to my divorce in 2006. And I was kind of kicked out of that church because my ex-wife was given a job there. And I went and approached one of the pastors and said, listen, this is what's going to happen to me. I'm getting ready to go overseas. I'm going into a combat zone, and I'd like to give my life to Jesus. And he said, why don't you go home and think about it, and think about how you failed in your marriage. And I thought, instead of saying, well, who is he to judge me? I'll if there's mistakes I made in my life, I'll be judged on them later. It hurt me so bad that I felt again like a failure in my life. And I will say that again turned me away from what people say, well, I turned away from religion because of this bad experience. That's fine to turn away from religion, but I shouldn't have turned away from God. and he was there with me. I had some experiences while I was overseas that maybe are again a topic down the road, that I believe God was there to get me through those times and to come back to my family. So I think it is important you shared, well, there was a legal trouble. There's people out there who might say, man, I've done some things in my, maybe there's people who have been to prison, and they're going to look at it as, am I worthy? Am I, what's going on? Maybe I'm not worthy. Maybe this isn't for me. And I think us each sharing our experiences we feel comfortable with, it shows people he's going to accept any of us, right? We're all filthy rags, right? We're all, there's been times I've struggled and I've said, Jason, what's going on? And he's like, Greg, we're all pieces of crap,
Yeah.
So I think it helps, and you don't have to share any more, but I think each of us have a unique story, and especially in the group, you've got Aaron, who's this Christian musician who's traveled all around the world.
Yeah.
And then there's guys like you and me that go, well, I could never live up to his experience. Well, our experiences are each our own, and that's something I cherish as that's mine. That's something nobody else can have and nobody else can take away from me.
I remember having a conversation with him over the phone when I first got saved. And like I had a lot of zeal in the beginning. Like I wasn't really reading anywhere near as much as I needed to. I was running around just spouting crap off and all that. But I was talking to him about it, and I was like, well, how was it for you? Like, did you go through, and he's like, well, like I was like raised in the church, and I mean, it was just like from the get-go with him. I'm like a late starter over here, so like our, like you say, our experiences were totally different. So he didn't really have a whole lot to give me on that. But I mean, I do remember one thing that he said that was interesting. It was kind of like that start of the relationship. And so he was like, it's kind of like when you like start dating somebody or whatever. Like you slowly figure out, do they like me to pull their chair out for them, or open the door for them, or do they like, yellow roses, or, so all these things that you're figuring out about, Jesus as you go along, obviously, that's in the book, and he'll tell you if you need to know too, so, yeah.
All right. That very, very similar, but also, again, unique experiences. So where is this journey taking you, and what are you doing now? The rest of your life, what are you doing? You're doing some unique things for some unique people. I don't think you give yourself the credit you deserve.
Oh,
So,
all right.
yeah.
I appreciate
Do you want to talk at all about the kids you work with?
Oh, at the school, yeah, I do residential therapy for teenage boys in Benton, Tennessee. I work for a company called Embark. I was a life coach there when I first started. I've done a lot of cooking in my past, so they asked me if I would move to the kitchen where we can like prepare. We prepare the food for the boys in their day to day, and I still get some time with them now, and every once in a while I get an opportunity to share in that. I had a kid a while back, he was telling me about going to like youth camp and like back home and all that, and I asked him if he had a Bible, and he said he didn't have one there, and I happened to have it was one of the pocket New Testaments in my car, and so I went out there and got that and gave it to him, and I was like, if you need something to read, man, you can take this with you. Like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, that was kind of a cool moment.
It's cool that I think the one thing I've recognized about you is you have God working in your life, and you so much don't want to take credit for it.
Yeah.
You're a pretty humble guy, and I appreciate that.
That's trying to.
It's been great talking to you. Hopefully now the viewers know a little bit more about Mike. And I remember hearing the first time before I met you, you had came out here to a class, and Jason said, there's this guy, Mike Denney. And I said, yeah, and he goes, he's a white guy with dreadlocks. So this was like this dude, and I'm glad I got to know you. I'm glad we went through advance together.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to tell you, I'm glad you're a brother in Jesus with me, brother.
You as well.
Thanks a lot. All right, we'll see you soon.
Thank you.